Good afternoon and welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. We'll be coming to you live throughout the day from the Nasdaq FedEx options trading floor. Joining me for my options expiration partner in crime, it's Shawn Cruz with TD Ameritrade. We're going into the 11:30 hour of trade with markets still firmly in the green. And I think what we're seeing on CNBC right now, Apple, their phone's going on sale. You see lines around the world globally. It's pretty incredible. When you guys were coming here, when you were driving in, didn't you see?
Saw the line in Philadelphia. There's a line down the block for the Apple store, so always a lot of excitement around the leases.
You would think it was the first model that they ever put out. It's incredible to see, the volume just on opening day.
And these new models are actually supposed to be priced a little higher than what you're typically usually see out of Apple products. So it's going to be interesting that can push their average revenue per phone up.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be looking at that. But it's interesting, the segment that we did before was looking at lessons that we learned from the financial crisis nearly 10 years ago. What's been a really super hot topic this week? Trading in the cannabis stocks. It's been a while since we've seen anything this extreme in the stock market.
It's something I think we saw it a little bit earlier this year around some of the blockchain-related stocks. We've seen it off of some of the crypto-related stocks and some of the cryptocurrencies themselves, these big moves. The thing is a lot of these names have smaller floats, and there's a lot of sentiment behind them, so that can really push the market one way or another. Getting back to our talk, when we talked about liquidity being something that you need to keep in mind when managing risk, when a lot of these stocks make these massive rallies higher on any sort of news or any positive sentiment, when they do start to come back in, liquidity is very important because you can see dramatic pullbacks in these names if there's no liquidity there, if investors decide to get a little bit of a sell mode and you see a shift in sentiment. So it's definitely something I think if you are going to trade these, risk management is absolutely key.
Right, and there are some long-term catalysts there, just to remind everyone. There is some deregulation going on in parts of the world. There's interest from your big global conglomerates such as Coca-Cola and Constellation as they look to add cannabis to their portfolios. There was, and that's interesting. I get that from the longer-term fundamental perspective. You have in Canada, October 17th, it's going to be illegal to carry weed around with you, edibles perhaps next year. But what I thought was really interesting, even the costs on the borrows this week for people looking to go short on some of these names it wasn't even worth taking the risk because of how much money it costs just to simply try and sell these things if you could get a borrow.
And going into this week, two of the more shorted names out there were Tilray and Cannabis Growth, were two of the more shorted names in the sector. And I think a lot of this move we've seen this week may have been some short covering. But yes, if you want to go out there and try and short these names right now, those stocks are not easy to find right now on the street. And so the borrowing costs, if you want to short those, are higher as well.
Right. I would definitely look at this as a trading vehicle, an experienced trading vehicle versus an investment. That, if you're out there and you're looking to see, can I get in early? Because I think with any immature industry, there is going to be variations of it, and it's going to look very different 10 years from now than it does today. But I mean, even when you're looking at some option volatility statistics, they're looking for pretty significant moves.
They are, and if you look at Tilray especially, that's the one that really jumps out. So the stock, last time I checked, if you look away for 10 seconds, you don't know what it's going to be. Last time I checked, it's trading around 130, but the options market, the straddle price is pricing in about a $40 move. So that is, if you think about a 130 stock and we're pricing in a $40 move between now and next Friday, that's some serious volatility that's the option market is being priced in. If you look at a Canopy Growth, stock's trading around $50, let's say somewhere in the 49 range, last I checked, that's only pricing in a $6 move. So still a pretty significant move, but it's not really quite to the extent we're seeing out of Tilray, but a lot of uncertainty in these names, and that's being shown in the options market.
Would you say because volatility is high that it's expensive to trade the options on that at this point?
It depends on what your strategy is. Right. If you're a premium seller, there's no shortage of premium in these names right now. But I think right now, if you are going to go out there and do any sort of a trade, be it on the equity, be it on the options, you want to make sure you're risk defined. So if you're doing some sort of an options trade and you want to be directional, maybe you look at selling some spreads for credit. Call side if you think it's going to stabilize and move lower, or on the put side if you think it's going to stabilize or move higher.
Right, and I think it's interesting what you're saying about spreading the position versus having something exclusively directional. We saw what happened in February with short vol sellers.
Yes.
And I would say that kind of risk also exists in the weed names as well.
It does, and I think it's not unusual. Right now, what is new to this, that we've seen interest in this sector before, but we're actually seeing a lot more participation from millennials, and that's something that's very interesting. At TD Ameritrade, we actually saw it. It was some of our top traded symbols were in this name, but like I said, there's the clients going out there and they view this as more of a trade, and it's very important to make sure that you're monitoring your risk.
It's really interesting that you bring up millennial trading patterns. This is something that we discuss all the time, whether it's you and me or when JJ comes in and we're talking about the IMX readings monthly. What are some other trends that you're seeing with millennials right now? Are they continuing to stay with the more technology, communication services kinds of names?
We do see those names always remain popular, and there is right now we've seen an interesting shift, not out of just the millennials, but out of the TD Ameritrade client base in general. Was a little bit of a focus in ETFs tied to fixed income offerings. That was something that really stood out in the last IMX that I thought was very different and we're not used to seeing in the past. But we still see clients wanting to find exposure into the markets, and when you start to see a sector like the cannabis sector start getting a lot of momentum, it's not unusual to see some of the more, I'd say, actively trading clients to come in and try and find some opportunities.
So you were saying that you noticed a lot of flow with the income ETFs, and it reminded me of something that you said earlier this morning, where we're going to get the S&P rebalance at the end of the day, the reclassification at the end of the day, and now the telecom sector, which is yielding 6%, is now going to be 2% as you have the higher growth and consumer names come into the new communication services group. I wonder how that's going to impact some people's portfolios as well if they're constantly looking for that yield.
And if you are using telecom as a dividend proxy or a yield proxy, a bond proxy, I'm sorry, I think that is, you need to be cognizant of the fact that just going in and allocating some of your cash to telecom or now communication services may not get the job done if you're hunting for yield. And so you might be seeing clients that are out there looking at yield and telecom, trying to find it somewhere else, and they're finding that in some of those fixed income related ETFs.
All right, well, the close should certainly be interesting. There's going to be a lot of volume surging at the closing bell today for sure.
Definitely.
All right, well, thanks very much for joining me. We'll catch up again at the 12:30 hour. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.